Liberians have been spoiled for choice as they head to the polls next week. There are 20 candidates who want to take over from President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. A little over 2 million registered voters will be casting their ballots, and if no one gets the 50% of the votes, then there'll be a second round. A huge talking point, though, is the alleged involvement of a man who also ruled the country. Umaru Fofana is in Monrovia for us.
Campaigns are drawing to a close. Behind me here in the capital, Monrovia, there is a beehive of activity going on. 20 people are fighting to become the president of Liberia, and they are all here on this, the final weekend of campaigning. But there are questions as to whether there is another force at play.
God willing, I will be back.
He may not be a candidate, but Liberia's former President Charles Taylor is prominent in these elections. From a UK prison where he is serving a 50-year jail term for war crimes in neighboring Sierra Leone, he telephoned his supporters earlier this year and appeared to be discussing campaign strategy with them.
Charles Taylor can never ever try it. It will always be my life.
The telephone call came shortly after Taylor's former wife had been chosen by the world football icon George Weah as his running mate. At a recent campaign rally, she said she wanted to bring back the Charles Taylor agenda. While Weah admits to briefly talking to Taylor on the phone, he insists he's receiving no backing from him.
No, it's not true. There's no way Charles Taylor can campaign for me. Where Charles Taylor is, he's been monitored, and if you're campaigning for me, I think the world will be aware.
30 years ago, when he started his rebellion here, this place was Charles Taylor's fortress. Now it's a shadow of its former self.
This is what's left of Charles Taylor's rebel headquarters in central Liberia. His base may have crumbled, but for many across this country, his name remains as strong as ever.
Many here say they would vote for him if he ran again.
The basic thing that I will always remember Taylor for, the economic condition of the people of Liberia was good. They could afford to eat, even when they were not working.
So if Charles Taylor could come today in Liberia, I will vote him. My entire family will vote him. My entire generation will vote him.
The United States Congress passed a resolution condemning what it called any external interference in the upcoming poll. It cites specifically any attempt by Taylor to influence the elections from prison. For the Liberian journalist who published that telephone call, the impact of Taylor on these elections could be huge.
I think Charles Taylor's voice is very powerful. His saying what he said on that recording about returning to base was, in a sense, rallying the troops to say, well, I'm Charles Taylor, I'm still around, I'm still relevant, we support NPP.
As election day approaches, it appears Liberia's past weighs heavily on its present and perhaps its future.
Well, joining me to make more sense of the Charles Taylor effect here is Liberian journalist May Azango. May, what makes Charles Taylor tick? Why do Liberians seem to appreciate him so much, or at least some of them?
Charles Taylor still have a lasting impression on the Liberian people because he was loved by many, because of his style, the way he would tackle issues. So people kind of still like him. That's why.
I mean, what about it? Somebody, outside of Liberia might think he brought war to this country. This country lost thousands of people. But why do some people still hold him at a very high esteem?
When Taylor was coming, you heard the slogan, "You killed my mom, you killed my pa, I will still vote for you.
You killed my mother, you killed my father, I will still vote for you.
I will still vote for you." People were standing on the street when Taylor was leaving to come to Monrovia. The multitude of people will show to you that it's like, I don't know how to describe that day.
Was it his persona, his charisma, or the things that he did as president, or what?
The things that he did as a rebel leader before he became a president.
Such as?
The way he talks. Taylor will Taylor was street smart. He read people's mind. He knew what you like, and he knew what you appreciate, and he will come to you and say those things to you, and everybody will go, wow.
Some people have spoken about the economy under his presidency. They said that they could afford square meals a day, which they say they can't afford now. What is it about his economic policies?
Taylor's economic policy was very, very simple. Liberians, you hold Liberians by the belly. Oh yes. During the past, rice, R-I-C-E, rice, was one of the biggest things that brought many wars to Liberia. Once you took away Liberian men rice, you took away everything from him.
And how do you think voters will respond to his apparent call for support for his NPP and the candidates that is now running with George Weah?
A lot of people, it have brought fear to some people because they feel that if CDC should win with NPP, Taylor will still have influence over the government.
May Azango, thank you very much. That's Liberian journalist May Azango.